Hello, and welcome back to Jenna Gets Creative. Today I am going to run through what I have been posting up on Instagram over the previous 7 days. If you follow me there, you've probably already seen this stuff. A friend of mine, somebody I follow on Instagram, viennartdesigns, has issued a set of prompts for a Behind the Artist series, where each day we have been given a different prompt, a different talking points, so to speak, to let everybody know a little bit about us, the artist behind the artwork. This was a lot of fun. Feel free to try this series yourself. I'll be sure to have all 7 prompts in the description down below. And thanks again, Viennart Designs, for doing this.
First up, for August 1st, the prompt list says, "In what country do you live?" I live in Canada, born and raised. I was born in Vancouver, British Columbia, and I grew up in the Vancouver area. I moved a lot, but thanks to my mother being a teacher and therefore 100% able to get me to school at her workplace every day, I never had to move school districts. Or even schools, really. I did switch schools over Christmas break in kindergarten, but after that I stayed at the same elementary school the whole way through and followed my classmates to the appropriate high school. I moved to Newfoundland, which is our most eastern province, in 2012, and I've been here ever since. I live just outside the province's capital, St. John's, in the quickly growing community of Conception Bay South. It's funny though, my husband has never lived anywhere other than Conception Bay South. We call it CBS for short, by the way. And he looks around at how much it's grown and he sees it as becoming a city. I look around and I see the small mountain towns I used to visit in the summers when I lived in BC. It's definitely a difference in perspective since he's always lived here and I came here as an adult. Based on the 2018 national census, the province of Newfoundland and Labrador has a whopping 525,000 people, barely more than 500,000 in the entire province, including Labrador, which is the northern mainland section. A little over a fifth of the population lives in St. John's itself, which means CBS here definitely doesn't have a 6-digit population. I grew up in the metropolitan area of Vancouver, BC, which has nearly 2.5 million people. So yeah, big difference. I grew up in an area with 5 times the population of this entire province. Day 2 on the prompt list said, "Your studies/profession." To represent my answer, I did a gold and silver gel pen doodle in my black paper Pentalic sketchbook of a computer circuit. It's not accurate to any working computer circuits, I just doodled inspired by a random motherboard image I pulled up on Google. I spent about a decade in university studying both part and full-time in a variety of pursuits. While I was in BC, I studied for a Bachelor of Arts degree at Kwantlen Polytechnic University. It actually wasn't a full-fledged university when I started, it was Kwantlen University College, but in preparation for the 2010 Winter Olympics, BC really went all out boosting everything in the province, and they upgraded a handful of colleges to universities. My major was history with a focus on Canadian history, all of it, and Canada and the UK/Ireland in the World Wars and interwar years. Canadian history because I've been passionate about the topic ever since my 10th grade social studies teacher, Mr. Sparks, did a wonderful job inspiring me to dive headlong into the 10th grade curriculum material on Confederation. World War period Canada, UK, and Ireland because that's what my favorite professors in the history department at Kwantlen were teaching. I dabbled in several minors, including English and math, before settling on psychology. One of these days I'll have to tell you stories about my favorite professor in the psych department because he's had a fascinating life and he shared a lot of it with us. But this video is going to be long enough as it is. If you'd like to hear stories about the former Vegas magician who assesses dangerous offenders in BC, let me know. But anyway, then I moved out here to Newfoundland with the intent to earn a degree in electrical engineering. I started the engineering program at Memorial University of Newfoundland in the fall of 2012, and I loved it. I made great friends, I easily got into the discipline I wanted, electrical, and even did a co-op work placement at a company I've always wanted to try out. But life doesn't always go the way you think it's going to go. Electrical and computer engineering students share the same home lab and take a lot of the same courses since the disciplines are so similar, and many of our work placements are also from the same opportunities. By the end of my 4th academic semester, and after that first work term, I knew I'd made a mistake choosing electrical. Computer was where I really wanted to be. Alas, it's ridiculously difficult and counterproductive to switch disciplines in the engineering faculty once you've started one, and stupidly easy to switch out of the faculty into another. So I switched to a Bachelor of Computer Science degree. Even that felt a little counterproductive at first, since the required first-year programming courses I had to take were literally the same thing as the programming courses I'd already taken in engineering, just a different language, Java versus C++. The languages are so similar. I was working for a professor in the math department coding research tools for him in C++ and doing my homework for my courses in Java, and never making a mistake between them, even if I jumped back and forth between tasks in the same hour, because they work almost exactly the same way. And I'm a self-taught programmer since 2004, so... Prompt number 3 says, what do you like to draw? And if you've been around my channel for any length of time, it shouldn't surprise you that my answer is animals. When I'm doing a quick animal piece, I love using negative space techniques to do a black and white or limited color pieces that imply the full details of an animal without actually drawing the entire animal. I've got a short playlist of drawings I've done on this channel where I draw animals by only actually drawing their eyes, nose, claws, and markings. To represent this answer, I decided to do an Atlantic puffin. I love these adorable birds. But of course, these birds do have a lot of white, and handling that in a simplified negative space style was tricky. I put a lot more black on the underside of the left wing than you'd actually see, and I decided to do a splash of blue for the sky so that the edge of the puffin's chest and belly was clear. Without that, his solid black would have looked like that was meant to be his entire body, and that would have made him look very awkward and disproportionately skinny. If I wanted to keep this piece completely black and white, I probably would have done a wash of black ink for the sky, just in the same area as where I did the blue, so that the area was defined, but the background didn't end up looking like part of the bird. This is definitely one of my 2 favorite pieces that I ended up making for the prompt list, and I may come back to this idea and do it larger for better prints, because it turned out so nice, and I think prints of this one would definitely sell. By the way, if you're new here, please do subscribe and ring the bell for notifications. I upload every Tuesday and Thursday at minimum, and some weeks I have bonus videos as well. If you like this video, don't forget to hit like and leave a comment down below. I love reading your comments, and I reply to everyone. Let me know which piece of the 7 in this video is your favorite. Day 4's prompt was favorite materials, and I definitely can't pick just one. This little watercolor illustration shows a colored pencil, an alcohol marker, and a watercolor palette. The pencil is styled to look like a Faber-Castell Polychromos pencil, but of course I do also love the Caran d'Ache Luminance and Derwent Lightfast pencils. And I also really like working in pastel pencils, which is something I only recently discovered. In terms of alcohol markers, if it has a brush nib, I probably like it. Copics are the best for sure, but the Spectra AD and Blick Studio brush markers, which I believe are different labels of the exact same product, are the best alternatives and complements to the Copic collection I've found so far. I also really like the Winsor Newton brush markers, and I've been pleasantly surprised with the Sketchbox Signature 2.0 markers. My Jazz's Jazzy Art Box should be waiting for me in the mailbox today, so very soon now I'll be able to tell you how the Spectrum Noir brush markers fit into that equation. As for watercolor markers, I don't have just 1 or 2 favorite brands, nor do I have a preference for what form the watercolors comes in. I enjoy everything from pan paints and tube paints to watercolor inks and even watercolor markers. When I say watercolor markers though, I understand that I mean the highly soluble, vibrant paint or ink-based markers that behave like watercolor when blended with water, not simply water-based markers. When it comes to more traditional pan and tube paints, I do love traditional Western transparent watercolors, but I also enjoy playing with gouache and Gansai Tambi. Day 5 said favorite music / podcast while creating, and I don't technically have an answer for that since I usually put YouTube on in the background. I typically don't just put on music videos, and although some of what I put on in the background is also released as a podcast, I can't really say I listen to podcasts either. Sometimes I like to put on videos by my favorite fellow YouTube artists and draw along, so to speak. In fact, every Wednesday night I tune into Viennart's 2-hour live stream, and I'm usually working on something for my own videos while I listen. Other than that, it's a mix between just listening to whatever my favorite other creators put out, or binging on Reddit and creepypasta narration videos. Some non-narrator channels I put on frequently are Philip DeFranco, Jessica Kelgren-Fozard, Molly Burke, Ricky Pointer, IBX2Cat, Native Lang, Real Life Lore Half It's Interesting, Tom Scott, Animal Wonders Brains Group, and all of the SciShow and other John and Hank Green channels. That was a lot. Day 6 asked about our other hobbies, and when I'm not doing art or spending time in the great outdoors, I love books. I love reading them, and I'm also an avid writer, though I've yet to publish any books myself. I gravitate towards science fiction and fantasy, and like most SFF nerds in my generation, I'm a huge Harry Potter fan. You probably already know that though. This isn't the first time a Harry Potter themed piece has popped up on my channel. This is the Sorting Hat, and he's experiencing a Gryffindor Ravenclaw hat stall because I seriously don't know which of the two houses I really belong in. When I first read the books, before the movies ever existed, I identified with Ravenclaw. I've always figured I would love to be in Ravenclaw if I ever found myself at Hogwarts, but as the series grew in popularity and technology started to be used more and more, Sorting Hat quizzes came out. None of the better ones, including Pottermore itself, have ever put me in Ravenclaw. Usually I'm a Gryffindor, and if they show percentages, then Ravenclaw comes second. So I'll just settle on calling myself a Gryffindor. What about you? What house do you identify with most, and which house do sorting quizzes normally put you in? Are you a hat stall like me? Have you sorted into your North American house yet? I'm a Thunderbird. And what's your Patronus? According to Pottermore, mine's a hedgehog, which is ironic, because that's the only animal in the world I'm allergic to and can't touch. Finally, Day 7 on the prompt list asked about our favorite artists. I've always loved the artwork of Indigenous people here in North America, and artwork that shows them and their culture in a positive light. Growing up, Mom had the house filled with art by both Roy Henry Vickers and Bev Doolittle, so I'm definitely fond of their work in particular. Roy Henry Vickers is a First Nations artist of mixed Indigenous and English heritage from Kitkatla, British Columbia. I've been to his gallery in Tofino many times, and I could honestly spend entire days there just taking in his work. His work depicts the natural beauty of BC, usually featuring colorful gradients that are either smoothly blended or intentionally broken into curving chunks, and frequently include silhouetted people and hidden animals drawn in the First Nations style. In particular, some of my favorite Roy Henry Vickers paintings are Bear Moon, Eagle's Moon, Siwash Rock, and Evening Anchorage. The piece I'm doing here is a sunset gradient in the chunky Roy Henry Vickers style, with a salmon on the moon. I also mentioned Bev Doolittle. She's a watercolor artist who paints nature scenes that focus on animals and interactions between First Nations people and animals, or pioneers of the Old West. She's famous for her camouflage painting technique, where some of the subjects of her painting aren't always obvious at first glance. My favorites of her work include The Forest Has Eyes, When the Wind Had Wings, Near Miss, and Sacred Ground. My mom owns prints of all of those except Near Miss, and she also has Season of the Eagle and Pintos. Well, this has been a long one. If you made it to the end, thanks so much for watching. I'm gonna walk down to the mailbox now and pick up that jazzy art box. So if all goes well, that's what we'll be doing on Tuesday. See you then.